Welcome to HBEC IP Holistic Podcast. I'm Felix Yuen. I'm the IP and Commercialization Advisor at Henry Bernick Entrepreneurship Center, HBEC, at Georgian College. And today we're very happy to have Rob Stewart, the founder of White Tuque, which is a long-time client of HBEC. Yes, I understand?
Yeah, from the very beginning almost, yeah.
Amazing. Very glad to have you here today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, why don't we start right away? Can you tell us more about what White Tuque does? I know it's a cybersecurity company, but what is it actually?
Yeah, so White Tuque is a cybersecurity firm that really draws upon the experience of its staff and its team. And we're really focused on taking what we've learned for large enterprises, military, the different places where our team comes back at, and really using that knowledge to enable businesses to protect themselves. We're really focused on, looking at where are those threat actors and bad guys going to be focused on your business, where can we make the most impact, and really focused on enabling existing teams that are already there and being their advisor to help them navigate the ongoing cyber risk that we see on a daily basis, as well as a lot of the regulatory requirements.
Yeah, cybersecurity has been an issue for a long time. And since computer has been around, cybersecurity issues have always been around. And I know that your firm is taking a new approach. At least I understand that you're putting up on the website to tell your clients that your approach is very unique.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that?
For sure. I think for us, a lot of organizations, especially some that may be getting cybersecurity help for the first time, can be a bit overwhelmed by it. For us, we really focus on the critical technologies and functions within a business and what bad guys are currently targeting. So we can be very, again, put on that kind of bad guy hat sometimes and try and think, okay, if I was a bad guy, how would I try and take control of this business? How can I get the most leverage? So we really look where the bad guys look first and try and stop those holes, and then really work with organizations to kind of build that roadmap of, okay, here's you're secure today. How can we make sure we keep you secure? And I think one big highlight for us as well that we pride ourselves on is that we don't just look at the technology of an organization. In order to have good cybersecurity, you have to look across not only your technology, but your people and your processes. And we really try to make sure that cybersecurity in the areas we support our clients, that we integrate a lot of our expertise and really enable them through that cross section of people, process, and technology. Because, bad guys are not trying to, take over your systems just so they can have an extra PC they can use whenever they want. They're doing it to try and get into your people or your business functions and try and take advantage of you that way. So if we're going to try and stop bad guys and stay ahead of them, we have to have that exact same mindset.
So Rob, that's very interesting because, you need to know what bad guys think and how do you actually know where they are at, and they also are very innovative in their way of hacking, right? So how do you actually get to know them better?
For sure. And a big part about that is us having the right partners in not only the Canadian ecosystem, but the global ecosystem as well. And I think that's one of the advantages when you bring in an established group of cyber professionals. Their networks don't go away just because they're all of a sudden working for a small cybersecurity firm based out of Simcoe County, Ontario. There's actually a lot of support that our government has to make sure that people are aware of what's happening, whether it be through CSIS, CSC. There's a ton of great information that they put out as well. Plus, we have some vendor partners that we work very, very closely with. And we're really taking, what was normally only maybe available for large global enterprises and really trying to bring that experience and knowledge and the insight we have into the current, threat landscape and really make it available to those organizations that maybe aren't a giant global enterprise. One of the things that I've seen before as well is that, there's a lot of great technologies that are out there in cybersecurity that can help people and help defend threats. But many of them are designed for global enterprises. Unless you have 10,000 employees, they might not perhaps have the ability to deploy that tool properly for a smaller organization. So for us, we know that, bad guys are attacking businesses of all sizes. So we need to make sure that we are using our experience and approach and what we've learned on those very, very bad days for other organizations and using that to, protect those that need it the most, underserved industries.
Right, and I know you have clients small and big, and I know quite well the journey of your business starting from in 2021, 2022. It's actually quite interesting to see how fast it grows. How did you actually come up with this idea of starting your own business? I know you've been in this industry for some time. you had experience.
Yeah.
But transform it into your business is another thing, right? So how did it come about?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I really did not plan on starting White Tuque till maybe a few weeks before I incorporated and dove right in. My background was I first started working, I was a Georgian college student, and my first co-op ended up being at a base board and working for the Department of Defense for the Canadian Forces Recruiting Group, which a lot of people don't know is headquartered at Borden. I ended up staying there for 2.5 years. It was a fantastic learning experience, and I credit that quite a bit. I moved into the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario and was working at Casino Rama as well. So I had AGCO clearance and was working up there. And as
you
I was
were already in cybersecurity.
No, this is actually just general IT operations. And kind of looking back on it now, Felix, like what I was really understanding, number one, working in a place like Department of National Defense, you can't replicate that experience in security, but being able to work around seasoned military veterans on a daily basis who have been around the world, it was an amazing learning experience. And looking back on my days at the casino, that's where a lot of bad things happen with money laundering, and you're really understanding a lot of human dynamics. And after learning, IT operations and understanding how a bank works and how money moves around the globe, I moved into major incident management at the bank. And typically that might have been a role given to a project manager or another department head. But basically what happened, what I dedicated to was my phone would go off and it would always be something very, very bad. SWIFT is down, online banking's down, branches are all down. And I would help lead the virtual war room or the physical war room to restore service. Now for a computer geek, that's like a pretty cool job to have. My phone would go off. I had no idea what it was, but it was something very, very bad. Now the kind of cool part about that is that's a little bit unique about my background is obviously global finance is a very heavily regulated industry. You have to do things a certain way. But if a major service is down, you kind of have the keys to the kingdom to bring whoever you want onto a call to try and restore that service, right? And it's a bit addicting when you have experts from their fields on there trying to come up with solutions in the middle of firefighting and taking that down. But I got a little burnt out. I worked a lot of hours doing that and decided in 2018 to move into cyber threat intelligence. And I was going to take a more passive role and kind of write reports and things like that. But actually what I ended up doing on my first week on the job ended up being one of the largest breaches in Canadian history. Yeah. And typically what they would do is they would bring your most technical person, bring him in front of, the board and things like that. And it didn't go that well. So I got a call and said, hey, we know you gave up kind of this major incident management stuff, but would you come down here and help us out? Now it was kind of key for me because what I was able to do is, that same methodology that we use for major incident management, we could use for mitigating cyber threats. We could use it for, understanding what the bad guys had done, and because it was the exact same thing, enable experts to be their best, right? Mm-hmm. And I took up a couple of years doing that and moved into global crisis management for the pandemic. And at the very end of 2020, I said, you know what, I need a break from global finance, and I did consulting for exactly 2 months. Right. And that was my first peek outside of a regulated industry, and I was seeing, again, factories, healthcare, all kinds of different places that weren't mandated to do cybersecurity and seeing how vulnerable they were. And it was absolutely shocking to me. But on the flip side of it as well was my first exposure really to private industry and what consultants were charging and the money to be had and perhaps the bloat that was there as well. And I just thought, you know what? I need a change. Let me give this a shot and went for it.
Business.
Yeah.
And it's still quite interesting because, with all this experience, it's still your experience, and changing it from your own experience to a firm that can compete with so many competitors out there. We are talking about the best well-known cybersecurity firms are probably from the US or from the UK, and as a Canadian business, homegrown, how do you actually compete with them?
Yeah.
How do you find it actually important to emphasize that, well, this is a Canadian company with Canadian businesses?
Yeah. For me, it is. And I think we're lucky having some exposure to, a few different international businesses and seeing how Canadians are viewed. If you're looking at the cybersecurity industry specifically, you have to kind of look at, where are those experts coming from, right? And in Canada, a lot of people maybe don't think of it that way, but if you look at our big 5 banks, they are probably 5 of the biggest employers of IT security and IT staff, period, in the country. And lucky for us, the Canadian banks are very successful global banks as well. So there's inherently some experience there that we pull from that industry. If you look at government as well, we do have a well-respected intelligence industry, military, we're known for being very well trained. So if you look at those as well as academia and where people are coming from, they all have global experience. They all have very easy to deal with in many cases, I'm finding as well. And when we're very lucky that we can pull upon the success Canada has in other industries and be able to use that to say, hey, no, we can be trusted. Here's who we've worked with. Yeah. And I think a big part of it for me as well was that we actually incorporated very shortly after in Chicago because we had experience with the bank we were with in the Midwest, and we kind of made that a priority too. And we were happy to tell people that when we meet them in the U.S. It's like, yeah, we're a Canadian company, but we're Midwest and Chicago is still our U.S. home. And again, as a small firm, we're also, I would say, a bit careful on where we expand to. I don't want to, because in our industry, you don't want to get overwhelmed and not be able to respond for your clients. How many
people do you have now?
Right now, we are, depends if you call it, we have some part-time, actually probably around like 10 people plus some other roles. So if you get everybody involved, it's probably around 13 right now, give or take.
But no. You're still having a very tight team to manage so many businesses in Canada and the US.
Yeah. One thing for us is that we've all kind of been there, done this before, right? We all had virtual teams before, worked on both sides of the border. We know how to kind of operate in that manner. And it's nice that as we meet customers, a lot of them know our staff from their previous roles and their reputations. So that also helps out as well. So if we go into an international client, we can say, hey, here is someone who has done something with an organization that right? And it's been very, very helpful for us. And again, that's not me, that's my entire team. And, I kind of joke sometimes that I feel like I did a good job because in many ways, everyone on my team is a little bit smarter than me. It makes my job, quite a bit easier when you do it that way.
We surely need a good team to make
Most
things
certainly.
work.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the point that, people know about you. Your reputation is so important. And that comes from not only just like your personal network, but also from your name, from your brand, everything coming together and marketing all these. Now, I'm very interested in knowing more about White Tuque.
Yeah.
How did this name come about? And now, if you can show us the logo right here, that is a White Tuque, the logo that your company has. And how did this interesting logo come to the world?
So funny enough, I actually ended up, I bought the domain name a couple of years before White Tuque was started, and even before I moved into cybersecurity. We were in cyber awareness training, and as someone was mentioning about white hat hackers versus black hat hackers, right? And I made a joke in a chat one time about like, well, our Canadian white hats considered White Tuques then, and people had a great response. And I ended up buying the domain name after that, just on a whim or whatever, and kind of forgot about it. But no, that's kind of where it started. Is it's kind of a subtle Canadian play on white hat. And I have to tell you, one of my favorite things is seeing Americans or other people figure it out. We were down at South by Southwest last year. We were featured there as part of an Ontario trade mission. You see people walking up and looking at it and trying to figure out what it was, and they come up and, is that a play on white hat? And they would love figuring it out, right? So we also use the Canadian spelling for ours, the TUQUE, because if you happen to put in the O, which is another spelling that some people use, actually in Europe, that's a white chef hat. So we wanted to make sure that if someone was Googling what it was, it comes back as a Canadian term for a warm, protective winter hat, et cetera, et cetera. So and I loved it, but it was really great to see the response. And I can't go to a trade show without getting it mentioned to me a bunch of times. So I love getting that feedback. It's been great.
The story's beautiful. And since it's so unique to you, how do you actually protect? I know that you got some funding from IPON.
Yeah.
I know you got some funding from us, from Georgian College, to protect your IP.
Yeah.
How did you make use of it to protect the personal brand?
Yeah, so actually, one of the things that actually well before this program existed, very early on, meeting with our advisors from HBEC and Sandbox and a few folks in the ecosystem, we actually we're working with Lars, who studio we're in right now. And as soon as they helped us kind of refine our logo, we knew we maybe had something special. So one of the first things we did was put the trademark out on the actual logo itself very, very early on before we started seeing customers. But unfortunately, our journey kind of maybe stopped there or was hit on pause there, right? Because again, having to grow and kind of run the business, we hadn't quite hit that development time yet, or the time to start developing yet. And it was kind of a standstill. And I know that and around the same time that Georgian had their program come out, and there was IP Ontario. And more or less what it did was give us the opportunity to be able to start looking at that again, more or less, right? Because we knew it was important. But it's also, you do hear horror stories of people that have gone through the IP journey and have lost their shirt in it, right? Because they weren't focused on the right things. They were maybe not going after the right type of patent or whatever it may be to do what for their product or service.
Yeah. So for you, what did you do with White Tuque?
So for us right now, a big part of it was we are looking to, we're actually in the process now of expanding our trademarks to our names as well, because I think that's super important. And then we will be, we're working with Georgian College for a research and innovation project as well.
Tell us more about it.
Yeah, so that's a big part of it for us. So one thing for us is that we are looking to, we're in the middle of it right now and super happy to be working with Georgian. So we just finished a bit of development time, but actually a few weeks ago, we started a 3-year partnership that the federal government is involved with as well through an ARD grant that we got through the college. And what we're really trying to do there is replicate the experience of customers who need some cyber help that we are going to right now, maybe for the first time. A good example, maybe what we're trying to do with the platform is we were actually contacted by the OCI, Ontario Centre of Innovation. I know also works closely with Georgian. And we actually developed what they call their official cybersecurity workbook for their digital competency center. And really what that workbook does was help organizations who are looking to look at their cyber risk for the very first time as an organization. How can we help them do that? And right now, again, it's a great workbook, it works, but it's not really an automated process. And we want to basically kind of be able to scale our services that we do right now to those maybe underserved businesses that are maybe a small 1-2 person firm, but they deserve cyber just like anybody else. How can we scale that and do what we do automatically? And also, how can we help our existing clients do things a lot smoothly? Technology is a big part of what we do with our technology partners, but there's no one-stop shop for a tool. So we need to make sure that clients are using the right tools and we're getting the right information and making it as efficient as possible. So a lot of our, what we're building at Georgian, thanks to their help, will help us address a lot of those problems.
Yes, so basically it is using tech to help people understand tech.
Most certainly, yeah.
And my final question to you, to wrap this up, it's very, very interesting. We can go on for hours. But we surely want to know, for example, in 5 years' time, cybersecurity again, the issues can change very quickly. Unfortunately, the bad players are also quite up to the development of the technology, right? So how do you see the firm in 5 years' time as in coming to the same level as in helping your customers out there to protect them from cyber issue?
So right now, if you look at geopolitically, I think one thing I always tell a lot of people, hey, if there's a lot going on in the world right now geopolitically, there's probably going to be a lot happening on our side, and it's very, very busy. I think we're really in the time in the last couple of years where we're seeing real legitimate cyber warfare, right? And unfortunately, civilian businesses and people that maintain parts of infrastructure or supply chain are being targeted in that. One thing that we're seeing is one of the biggest problems that we would have, I think in a lot of cases, is people just thinking it's not going to happen to them and not worrying about it afterwards, right? But as we see more and more attacks across every industry you can think of, those are only going to increase. So for us and our team is that we need to understand how we can do things as efficiently as possible, because there is going to be a huge cybersecurity gap in talent. And I should put an asterisk next to that. I would say experienced talent, people that have been through an incident before, people that have, negotiated with threat actors, people that have helped an organization pick up the pieces. There's not as much experience there, right? And we need to make sure that we develop that. And a lot of that comes into, cyber operations and where we can expand to there. But for us, we're just, again, slowly expanding in the areas that we can help, and really refining our methodology along the way. And that's another big part of, for us, the IP journey, is that normally you put down a process, you hand over a 900-page document, and then it's gone, right? We want to make sure that we can protect the things that we're doing and give back to the people that are developing these things and these great minds that we have on the team. So for us, it's going to be a lot more of finding out the most efficient ways that we can make sure businesses and organizations stay online and keep their critical functions driving their business.
That's amazing. I heard three things: national defense,
Yep.
continued innovation in your firm,
Yep.
and also intellectual property.
Yep.
That sums up very well.
Most certainly.
Conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Rob.
for having
That
me.
is amazing conversation with you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.